Thanks for taking a look at this video. This is Landon Zacharias, principal at Mount Olive. The goal with this video is to help you understand your child's ACT Aspire results. These tests were taken back in April of 2018, and we just want to give you the opportunity to examine the results and understand what you're looking at. So what I would ask as you watch this video is that you hold your actual child's test results report right by you when you're watching the video. So you can go back and forth from the video to the actual report to make more sense of it. So thanks for watching. On the ACT Aspire suite, there are 5 tests: reading, writing, English, math, and science. But what you're going to find on the report is that there are only 4 reporting categories, and that's English, reading, science, math. The writing test score is figured into the English score that you'll see. That acronym ELA stands for English Language Arts. So keep that in mind. The writing is lumped in the English reporting category. What you see here is simply what the front page looks like on your report, and the one we'll be covering first, and then that's the back side, which we'll be covering second in this presentation. Here's just a couple things for you quickly on the results and the scores that I want you to note. ACT Aspire, this was a very thorough test, more thorough than our previous standardized testing, because it wasn't just multiple choice. You weren't just answering questions. It was really, you're constructing written responses sometimes, needing to justify answers. Writing wasn't just answering questions. Now, there certainly were some multiple choice options, but we feel like this was a very thorough test. A reminder that no matter your child's score, this is still just one indicator of your child's overall academic picture. So keep that in mind. Couple general things. The lowest score that you could get is 400 on all the tests. ACT Aspire has their reasons, but for your purposes, just know that. The highest score varies by grade and by subject, and anywhere between 429 and 456. But you can see pretty clearly on the reports where your child is at, even if you don't fully understand why those numbers are what they are. Please look to side 1 that says current progress at the top right. We're going to start on that front side right now. So you can see on the screen here that we have the 4 reporting categories. That's English, reading, math, and science. Now, right under each reporting category, you're going to see a word: exceeding, ready, in need of support, or close. Those all mean separate things that we'll cover in just a little bit. And then right under that, you'll see a number as well. For English, you have 431. For reading, you have 428, etc. Then what I want you to take a look at is right on the bottom here, you have what's called an ACT readiness benchmark. This is kind of what ACT would expect people in that age range to be at. I believe this is an 8th grade test, so they would expect an average score of about 422. However, if you look right next to it, and we'll talk about national average in just a little bit here, you'll see that it's 428. So the average is actually above what ACT would expect in our nation. But if you go right to the right and you look at science, you see that the ACT readiness benchmark is 427, but the national average is 424. So there's just some terms for you to understand. You're going to note now that we're going to take a look at these 3 things here. This is the key that's kind of found at the bottom right of the page, bottom right side of the page on the first side. The green shaded area at the top here, this means that the child is on target or above the target. So that's where we want to see the children fall. For the ACT readiness benchmark for ELA and STEM, we'll talk about that just in a little bit. This orange kind of measures your child's score. The black means something else, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The predicted path is an interesting tool that ACT Aspire has. It's what ACT Aspire feels your child will be heading toward based on the information that they have. Now, we've only taken this test 1 year, so there's not a whole lot of data backing it up, but it still is an interesting snapshot. Now, think of it, kind of like a hurricane. You can kind of get that projected path for the hurricane, and most of the time it might fall right in that projected path. However, sometimes we see hurricanes turn off, go up, go down, and that's the same thing as with your child's education. This predicted path is not 100% accurate. National average then is the score of all students that have taken this test and then averaged among theirs. So this is private schools, this is public schools all across the nation. So here's some score reporting. We're taking a look at the reading score here. So if you kind of look right over here, you see that the score is shown by this orange dot. This person has a score of 428. If you take a look at this left side, it shows those indicators. We have exceeding, ready, close, and need of support. And if you follow this path, you can kind of find out where this student is. So this is an 8th grade report. They're at a 428. Now that means that they are in the ready category, which is right where they need to be. And so, you know, if you find your student falling in that ready category, that's exactly where ACT Aspire would expect your student to be. That's a good thing. So you can kind of see the grade movements down here. Also down here, note the ACT readiness benchmark for this was 424. The national average for this particular one was a 423. So we see that this person came in 5 points ahead of the national average there. For the national average, recognize that it's a 3-year rolling average. And so that national average may change from year to year, but they try to average it over 3 years. And then you can also see that that predicted path that I was talking about earlier. It's because there's only 1 year of data. You know, there's a lot of ways that this student could go into the future. One thing I did want to mention. This is what your report looks like right now. With 1 dot on here. However, in the future dots, or in the future years, what you're going to see is multiple dots. These gray dots right here, these gray dots are how the child has performed in previous years. So notice this student was first tested in 3rd grade. Here's what they got. Well, maybe through some assistance in the classroom at home, they worked up to close, and then by 5th grade, they were into the ready category. So it's great to see that improvement over the course of the years. You won't see that on the current test you have. However, in future years, you'll be able to track your child's progress like that. For the STEM and English language arts readiness, this is kind of right under those first charts. You're going to see a couple different things. First of all, for the English language arts, basically what they take is the English part, the English tests, the reading tests, and the writing tests, and they get a composite score of those. The dark orange portion represents your child's score. So this is right here would be a 430. And then this black T marks the ACT Aspire readiness benchmark. So we can see that in ELA, this particular student is above that benchmark. However, for STEM, we can see that if the student score is 420, this is below what ACT Aspire's readiness benchmark says. The STEM benchmark for students is pretty bold. It's pretty high, and it represents your overall performance on the science and math test. But however, it does take specific questions from science and math and includes those into STEM. And just so everyone's on the same page, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's just some indicators that you can take a look at. In this particular example, we see ELA. There's a readiness benchmark is 427, but this student got a 430. The readiness benchmark is a 433, which would be this black mark right here, but the student got a 420. I had mentioned that the STEM readiness, this is a pretty aggressive benchmark. Just to highlight that even more, look, for science, this student is marked as a ready. They're good to go right here. For math, their student is marked as a ready. They're good to go here. However, if you look down at STEM, notice they're not totally ready. And that's, as I said earlier, because they pick a couple or some specific questions from science and math to get this STEM score. It's not just an average of these two. Progress with text complexity. This is just a checkbox. On the reading test, there are a variety of levels and complexity of text, which vary by grade level. So basically, is your child making sufficient progress in understanding complex text at their area, or in that area, or are they not? And so it's a simple checkbox, a yes or a no there. National percentile, I already mentioned, is a rolling 3-year average. Percentile, just to help you understand it a little bit, is if you have a student for reading, for example, that are in the 76th percentile, that means that this person for reading scored at or above 76% of all kids who took this test over the last 3 years. However, if you look at science, that same thing holds true, right? This particular student scored at or above 19% of all kids who took this test over the last few years. Just so you understand this, and this is in the bottom left-hand corner of your page, it's a scale score range. Tests, one thing that we all have to understand about standardized tests is that they are taken on one day. And there may have been something that have come up that day. Maybe the kid had the sniffles and had to keep getting up for Kleenex. Maybe this kid was super excited about his little brother's birthday party after school, so he was thinking about that. Maybe something happened in the morning where the kid was late for school and he was flustered. And so there are things that affect the way that kids do on tests. And this scale score range is simply to say, let's say the student, without any prep, took the test again. Here's what they would fall. Now I'd like you to turn to side 2. Side 2 is titled Skill Proficiency. It's at the top right. And what this side does is it breaks down on how your child did on the different assessment areas on each test. Really, this side gives solid insight into what skills were assessed in each content area and how they did in each area. So here are some graphs. What I want you to see, I just have a couple things for you to look for. Each of the bars in reading, let's look at, each of the bars in the reading area. Dark orange, wherever you see dark orange on the left, that means that they have a good grasp in that area. If they have light orange on the left, that means they weren't quite ready in that area. And so then you can see how many questions were in each category. So for reading, for example, key ideas and details. This student got 14 out of 17 questions correct. Great job. For integration of knowledge and ideas, they got 1 of 4. So that's where they would say they're not quite ready where they need to be yet. But you can kind of see that for all of the different areas. It breaks it down. It allows you to see what is your kid doing pretty well at. You know, over here, I would say this student has a pretty good grasp of the number system, 2 out of 3 here. However, if you go down to functions, 0 out of 6. So that's an opportunity for a teacher or a parent to recognize, all right, we need to really make sure we're helping this student with functions. What do these little black bars mean? If the dark orange bar is within, on the left side, is within the black bar, that indicates readiness or above readiness. We do not have the indicators for writing. So you just won't see that there because writing was kind of lumped into the reading area. But this just helps you understand, what do the orange bars mean? What do the black brackets mean? What are the different categories and so on? It breaks it down for you. For writing, this is an important thing to address with you. This writing test, this was a lot of writing. You had 7th and 8th graders, I believe, wrote an essay on their test. The 3rd and 4th graders wrote stories on their test, and there were actual people grading these. They weren't answering questions. It wasn't like a short answer section. But ACT Aspire contracted scorers, and that's who did this scoring. What I want you to know for sure is if you look up at the top right, you see a 67%. Now, 67% in our normal grading scale is a failing score. However, don't look at this percent the same way that you look at our grading scale. This is what's called a rubric scale. So for 3rd through 5th grade, they have what's called a 5-point rubric that the graders use to grade their writing. So they use a 5-point rubric for each one of these categories in grades 3 through 5. In grades 6 through 8, they use a 6-point rubric. That's where this 6 comes from. Now, any student in either 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, a 4 is right where one would expect to be at that grade level. So if you're in 4th grade and you got a 4 out of 5, that's great. That's right where you should be. If you're in 8th grade and you got a 4 on the 6-point rubric, that's right where you need to be. Anything above that just means you're a little bit advanced in that area. When you go down to the bottom of the page, you're going to see that in each particular subject, they give specific feedback for how your child did on that test. So if you take a look at this, maybe the student did really well in English, and you can break it down in the production of writing and the knowledge of language. However, in the conventions of standard English, maybe they didn't do as well. What it does here is it gives specific points, or it gives specific feedback on how to improve. Improve things you're already doing well, and improve in areas where you do need extra help. So you can study your child's own suggestions for improvement. You can definitely talk with your teacher about these, or your child's teacher about these categories. You could talk with your child about these categories, but we always want to try to find ways to help students improve, and that we feel like this is a nice tool here. So if we take a look here, science, interpretation of data, doing pretty well, right? You're within that readiness benchmark. Scientific investigation, you're within the readiness benchmark. However, the evaluation of models, inferences, and experimental results, you're a little low. So you'd see areas to improve here, areas to improve here, and areas to improve here. And this specific feedback is generated on how the student did on those specific questions in the test that they took. This is going to be it. I hope that this gave you an opportunity to understand your child's ACT Aspire results a little bit more. If you do have any questions about this video or about the reporting in general, please let me know. If you have any questions specific to your child's results and what that means for their time in the classroom and what that means in how the teacher is going to help them, please contact your child's teacher. I just want to throw a quick thank you out to Mr. Jacob Steinmetz, who's the principal at Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran School in Menasha, who provided most of this information in this presentation for us. So very thankful to him for that. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.